Hello. Okay.
Like remove it.
Okay. Hi, my name's Kate Stenvig. I'm an organizer with BAM. And I just wanted to say a few things to introduce Tala and Angelica, who will be running for Central Student Government with the Defend Affirmative Action Party. I think right now we're living in a time of like a lot of polarization in the society, and it can kind of go one of two ways. There's like on the one hand, there's the on the one hand, there are the forces that want to bring us back to a new Jim Crow, which we're already in, a new Jim Crow situation, and increased police brutality, more cuts to education and opportunities, and on the other hand, the new civil rights movement and the new immigrant rights movement, and which is expressed in the struggle of the people of Ferguson against racism and police brutality. On this campus, we see that divide in, on the one hand, the administration that is like growing more and more arrogant, that just thinks they can get away with whatever they want and just lie, and it's more and more cynical. They show more and more contempt for the students on this campus. But on the other hand, there's a leadership of students coming forward in ways that haven't happened in a really long time, that of students that are, you know, optimistic and not afraid to speak the truth, and like express the anger that so many other students feel, and and really feel like the urgency of the moment that we have to fight now. And the people that, you know, are speaking tonight are, you know, leaders who are not impressed by all the committees that the university has created year after year, and like all the endless campaigns, like inclusive language campaign, that are all focused about what words we use, like versus what actual actions we take and that the administration takes. So, you know, you can go to like all these required trainings about sexual assault, but rapists like never get punished, never get expelled, and so the lesson is, well, you can just get away with it, and that's not acceptable. And we know that it's actions that speak louder than words. It's going to be our actions that can win, you know, that can actually change the conditions like of our lives on campus. And okay, I'm gonna okay. So really quick, like it's really important for us to have a leadership that that is speaking for so many people who agree with, you know, who agree with what we're saying, know what we're saying is true, but need a direction forward. And on November 20th, the Regents meeting is, like, us mobilizing for that meeting is a really important opportunity, because there's been, you know, years of people going to these Regents meetings and either, you know, appealing to the Regents or making angry speeches, and then, you know, the Regents just go back to having their conversation. They just like ignore anybody who speaks and just go back to having their conversation about, you know, congratulating themselves about how much money the university has, or like who's playing golf with who this weekend. And it's completely ridiculous. And the only way that that we can win, like, is to, we need to shut that meeting down. We need to shut the Regents meeting down, and we need to assert our own leadership, because we are the real leaders of this campus, and not them. They are completely, you know, unwilling and incapable of, they've proven themselves, you know, unwilling to do what needs to be done. And, you know, we're not going to win by, you know, sucking up to any of them. But, I'm trying to be short. But just the very last thing is that anyone here or anyone you know who wants to to come forward to make a fight around, you know, anything that's happened to you on this campus, like racist attacks or sexual assault and rape. Like, it takes a lot of guts to do that, and but it's really it is a fight worth making, and it is, you know, a way to like gain real freedom by making a collective fight. And the people who have already come forward are like tough as nails, and we will completely, you know, fight to defend anyone and like win real justice by any means necessary. So I will hand it over to Thank you, Kate. I appreciate it.
My name is Angelica Davis. I'm a freshman here at the university, and I am also a candidate for CSG, and I'm going to be a representative for BAM. My experience on this campus is very upsetting when you compare it to Michigan's standards. Michigan prides itself on being a place where sexual assault is not tolerated, any type of prejudice is not tolerated, diversity is their complete and whole goal, and it's so opposite of what everyone thinks it is. So here, I'm expecting a campus that's full of people that are like me, either mixed or African Americans, and I have a very unpleasant surprise when I arrive. Coming from Detroit, I'm used to people being half and half, or of all different. It's very diverse in Detroit. We're like a very collective mixing pot. So coming from there, it's like a complete reversal. And so I come here and I realize, wow, there's really only 4% of us. And that's so disappointing. That's so disappointing to a student that came here to a school that is based on diversity, and there is no diversity. That's ridiculous. And even when it comes to defending the rights for minorities on this campus, it is so, they talk about language, but when it comes to actual actions, when kids are making jokes on social media that associates themselves with the University of Michigan, or kids publicly saying things in class that degrades other minorities, that is offensive. And when students are in classes and they're feeling like they're being put down because they either can't keep up or certain things are just not up to speed with them because of where they come from, it's no one feels like they are included. It's not this place that's supposed to be inclusive is a completely exclusive environment unless you are of a certain race or of a certain gender. And so that's how I feel about the minority aspect. And with sexual harassment and assault, I feel like that's also something that's completely overlooked. Even though Michigan says that they have zero tolerance for this, and they have all of these things that are supposed to be inclusive for women, women are still so looked down upon here. It's really ridiculous. Like, even at parties, even though we have all of this sexual education and alcohol, EDU, and all of this, it's still not stopping what the real issue is, that the people here don't have respect for women in this area. It's ridiculous that I have to walk into UHS and I ask for birth control and they question me about it still. Like, why do you need an answer? And why do you need an answer for why I was at this party and why I don't like that guy? Things like that shouldn't be questioned. Or if I don't want to be around a rapist and he's still coming to my classroom, that's a whole different thing. Things like that should not be going on here if the university is as great as they claim to be. So yeah, I'm here with BAM to improve all of these aspects of the university and hopefully make it a better place for all minorities and all genders. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tala Talib, and I'm a freshman here, also at the university. Like I've said before at the last tribunal, I came here with a vision of a diverse, tolerant school, but I was like very disappointed when I got here. You know, at my old school, it was very diverse. In every classroom I was in, there were like 4 or 5 Black kids, 4 or 5 Latino students, some Arabs, some white kids. It was very diverse. Coming here, I'm in a classroom, you barely see one minority student, like in a whole classroom. There's like 20 white kids, and I'm just sitting there like, yep, I'm Arab. Like, it's really sad. You know, sometimes I walk into my classes of like 400 students, and I look around, and I don't see one other girl wearing a headscarf. It's like, we live 45 minutes away from Dearborn, where the whole community, literally you walk around, there's a girl on any street, any corner wearing a headscarf. They're all at the age of college too. It's so sad. You know, a lot of students, like the Black communities, Latino communities, Arab communities are forced to be the sole representatives of their culture, and it's not fair. Day in and day out, we're forced to sit awkwardly in class because we are scared of what people might think of us, the harassment we'll face that day. From my own experience, I know that sitting in a class with 30 white kids while you're the only minority students is never comfortable. I always feel like I have to be on my absolute best behavior to not portray Arabs in a negative light. This is a classroom though, not the military. We shouldn't feel uncomfortable. We should feel comfortable to be ourselves. I know that I don't feel comfortable knowing that I'm being judged for everything I do, because there's no one else to show that not all Arabs are the same. For instance, this becomes a real problem in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict class that is taught here at U of M. Due to the fact that this class is taught by a Zionist professor, an Arab student in the class won't feel comfortable voicing their own opinion. I've had friends that literally can't say what they believe, although they've been in Palestine. They know the conditions there. They are Palestinian. They can't say a word because the professor just either ignores them, their opinion doesn't matter, or the professor discriminates against them and is like, well, you think this way and you could write that on your exam, you're not going to get an A. It's just really sad because this like school is based on discussion, and you're supposed to be able to say what you believe, but you're not. You can't be yourself. You know, these kids don't just get harassed because of their opinions. They'll feel like complete outsiders. Feeling like an outsider is so easy in this university. Daily we get asked to get into groups in our classes, and if we are the minority student, no one wants to work with us. If you do find a group though, they won't take any of your opinions into consideration. Last week I was put into a group with 2 white male students. Of course, me being a girl already put me in the position to be looked down upon, and being an Arab and Muslim student didn't make it any better. They just looked at me and automatically thought that they were smarter, and my answers and opinions didn't matter. Word after word, I said got ignored. What killed me inside is that I usually don't say things unless I'm sure about what I'm saying. Everything that I attempted to contribute to the group, I was sure of, but that didn't matter. They saw that I was a woman and that I was an Arab, and they thought it gave them the right to say that they're smarter than me and to tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. This is the sad truth that the minority and women students face every day. There's a power struggle between the white elite and the minority students. Some students feel that they're superior to other students due to sex, race, religion, socioeconomic status. The more minority groups you fall under in those categories, the harder it gets for you until you eventually give out. Giving out and giving up isn't the answer though. We are here to fight, and we will make our voices heard. We all deserve to be here on this campus, and it's time to start feeling comfortable here. The university needs to admit more minority students so that people back off these minority groups that get discriminated against and have to go through it alone. No, it's not fair that I'm in a class, the one representative of this whole group of people, and they all look at me and like, well, all Arabs are like that because that's just who I am. And all Black students are like that because that's just who they are. But all white students get looked upon. You can make a mistake, and you can make a mistake, but you're not classified as white in that position. You know, I'm always said that, you know, you're Arab, so all Arabs are this way. But if a white guy does something wrong, oh, it's not that he's white, you know, it's just he's just a guy, or he's just person. So these labels really do hurt us. I leave class every day feeling uncomfortable sometimes. in my English class, like I have the class with Angelica, and the room literally, like people walk in and it's all the white kids and then the 2 or 3 minority kids sitting in a corner by themselves because no one wants to leave a seat for them to sit next to. It's just really sad. But, and this stuff really angers me, and after CSG voted down the Ferguson resolution that we gave them, it made me really mad, and we saw like how racist they can be and how racist this campus is, and it's time to not tell them that it's okay anymore. We need to fight back and say that it's not okay. So that's why I'm running for CSG representative, and with hopes of finally changing this campus. Thank you. Okay. Guess I'm not done. Lately I had the honor of speaking to a band member from California who, like me, is from the Muslim community, and she is a minority in her school. She recently was sexually assaulted and raped at her school due to the fact that she wore a headscarf. You know, her rapist walked around like day after day, every time he saw her and her sister saying things like, "Oh, you're wearing a sexy headscarf today." Like, what kind of comment is that? You know, like, I shouldn't be, like, if I'm walking down the camp, like down the hallway, I shouldn't have that said to me. Like, it's just so sad that people just don't have a brain to like understand that that's not right, you know? So, and hearing that from California, I never thought that it would be true here, but day after day I hear comments like that just because I do wear a scarf. You know, some people do make stupid comments that want to like give me a hug, or they want to see my skin, or they want to see my hair, and it's just not something for other people to see. That is why I put on a scarf. It's for modesty reasons. And due to this, we started a petition for the University of Michigan it's in defense of the rights of Muslim women against discrimination, religious persecution, and sexual harassment and assault at the University of Michigan. I hope you guys would all sign our petition and help us fight for our rights. Thank you.
Okay. So we wanted to take a vote on like circulating this petition, and it is a little bit long, but we did want to read it because I think that it really does get like at the heart of the question of like racism and sexism on this campus, and so I'll read parts of it. Okay. In defense of the rights of Muslim women against discrimination, religious persecution, and sexual harassment and assault at the University of Michigan. 1. Preamble to the petition. In the aftermath of the attacks of September 11, 2001, the United States embarked upon the longest war in the history of the nation. Riding upon a massive wave of national hysteria, the U.S. military campaign encompassed a broad spectrum of both official and unofficial purposes, as well as multiple national targets and potential targets. Whether the purpose was to fight terrorism, to disarm weapons of mass destruction, to reduce the influence of radical Islamist leadership, or to conquer oil reserves, and whether the targets included Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, or Syria, the single clear intent was to wage war, and the single clear, quote, enemy was the Arab and Muslim world at large. Those conditions provoked a vast and rapid escalation of generalized paranoia and hatred against Middle Eastern people, and resulted in a long series of domestic discriminatory abuses against Arab and Muslim Americans. The University of Michigan has been a frequent scene for such abuses. Its campuses are located both in and near the city of Dearborn, home to the largest Arab population outside the Middle East. Since 2001, Muslim students at the University of Michigan and particularly Muslim women who cover with a hijab or headscarf, have been subjected to a wide range of verbal and physical attacks. The attacks have manifested in the form of racial slurs, in the forced removal of headscarves, and in sexual harassment and assault. The attacks have involved such a tangled convergence of racism, sexism, religious bigotry, and national chauvinism that it is virtually impossible to delineate where one form of oppression ends and the other begins. Underneath that tangled web of discrimination, numerous basic rights have also converged as the objects of attack: equal justice under law, freedom of religion, and liberty from all forms of tyranny. It is urgently necessary to declare and to defend the rights of Muslim women at the University of Michigan. It is necessary to expose and challenge the abuses and to provide measures in policy and in practice to confront the issue explicitly. This petition is dedicated toward achieving those aims.
Part 2. The hijab and the rights of women. The headscarf is one of the most visible symbols of the Islamic religion, of Middle Eastern culture, and of specific rules pertaining to sexuality. It has a long history and it carries different significance for different people. It has been a political target for both the persecution of women who don't cover and the persecution of women who do cover. In a democratic society, women have the right to choose whether or not to cover and to be equally free from persecution in making these decisions. Women have the right to wear a headscarf as a convention of religious practice. Women have the right to wear a headscarf as an expression of cultural heritage. Women have the right to wear a headscarf in order to bind boundaries to sexual behavior. Women have the right to wear a headscarf for any reason and have the right to not give a reason at all for doing so. At the University of Michigan, or any institution that is obligated to respect certain basic and equal rights, no person has any authority or justification to impose upon women any requirements regarding the wearing of headscarves. No person has the authority or justification to demand a reason for covering as a condition for allowing women to cover. There is no justification for discrimination against women who do choose to cover, for harassing women who choose to cover, for assaulting women who choose to cover, or for otherwise degrading and abusing women who choose to cover. And there is no justification for the University of Michigan to ignore, to condone, or otherwise tolerate such discriminatory conduct on the part of any member of the institution.
Sexual harassment and assault. The most debated and controversial aspect of the hijab is the regulation of sexual boundaries that its tradition represents. In the abuses imposed upon Muslim women around the world, the object is often either the enforcement or the violation of those sexual boundaries. The violation of those boundaries generally takes the form of sexual harassment and assault. Women have the right to define sexual boundaries regarding with whom sexual contact is appropriate, regarding what kind of contact is appropriate, and regarding what degree of exposure is appropriate. Women have the right to define those boundaries on a religious basis or on a secular basis or on any basis imaginable, and all men are equally obligated to respect that right and those boundaries regardless of the reasoning behind them. No man has the prerogative to decide which boundaries are valid and which are not. A woman's boundaries are always valid because her body is her own, and it is the woman's prerogative to decide what is and is not permissible regarding her own body. The deliberate violations of these boundaries, sexual harassment, assault, and rape, are equally impermissible against anyone and against any boundary. Furthermore, it is not the prerogative of the University of Michigan or any other institution that is obligated to respect certain basic and equal rights to define a woman's sexual boundaries for her. It is not the prerogative of the University of Michigan to define for Muslim women what kinds of contact are appropriate or inappropriate. It is not the prerogative of the University of Michigan to define for Muslim women what kinds of contact are sexual or not sexual. Whether the contact was, quote, only a hug or, quote, only a shoulder rub, Muslim women have the same right as all other women to reject such contact as being inappropriate. Every woman has the right to define what men can or cannot do with her body regardless of whether it is overtly sexual or, quote, only a hug. Neither form of contact is appropriate if it is imposed against her will, and both can constitute harassment. The University of Michigan knows very well this definition of harassment and is equally obligated to uphold the rights of Muslim women against imposed and unwanted behavior as it is to uphold the rights of all other women. The appropriateness of behavior towards a woman is not merely defined by the content of the behavior, it is defined by the woman.
Four, freedom of religion. As a result of decades of military campaigns waged by the powers of Europe and the United States against Middle Eastern nations, Islam has acquired the status that once belonged to Judaism for much of the history of Europe. Islam has become the single most demonized and vilified religion in the Western world. The practitioners of Islam today face the same fundamental calamities that plagued the Jews of Europe for centuries: social degradation, government repression, death. If history does not actually repeat itself, then at least it must be said that political power has not greatly changed its methods. Of all the arguments that Western authorities have propagated to justify the repression of the Islamic religion, perhaps the most hypocritical is the argument regarding the status of Muslim women. But in every instance of such anti-Islamic attacks, Muslim women have only been subjected to degrading mistreatment and the denial of basic rights. In France, the most egregious perpetrator of this trend in Europe, Muslim girls and women have been banned from wearing headscarves in schools, and women who wear a full veil have been banned from doing so anywhere in public. This is not liberation. It is an attack on the ability of Muslim women to attend school, to hold a job, and in the case of a fully covered woman, an attack on their ability to even leave the house. The false liberators are merely colonial conquerors in disguise. No authority in the United States or Europe would dare to propose the same repression against Christian women, stripping the engagement and wedding rings from their fingers and tearing the crosses from their necks. While engagement and wedding rings represent essentially the same sexual exclusivity and property symbols in Christianity as the hijab in Islam, the repression of women wearing rings could not improve the status of Christian women. Such repression would only add a new assault upon their freedom and dignity. Even unmarried Christian women often wear rings simply with the hope of warding off unwanted male advances, showing that they are less concerned about the symbolic constraints of their religious practice than they are about the impositions of actual men. The denial of the religious freedom of expression is not the same thing as the improvement of women's status. Whether being persecuted for covering or being persecuted for not covering, the real effect upon Muslim women has been the denial of rights and the denial of power.
Racial discrimination and national chauvinism. The United States is on the verge of becoming a majority-minority nation, and the national birth rate has been majority non-white for several years. Europe is experiencing a similar trend. The globalized economy, free trade measures, global warming, and the foreign policies of stronger powers exploiting poorer nations. These factors have combined to create one of the most massive relocations of humanity across national borders in all of world history. This worldwide mass migration is ongoing and is profoundly transforming the appearance of many nations. And yet, in spite of this trend of growing minority populations, there has not been a corresponding increase in the rights and status of racial and ethnic minorities. Quite the opposite. In the United States, racial inequality and segregation have grown much worse. At the University of Michigan and other elite college campuses, minority student enrollment has plummeted to levels not seen in 40 years, moving in the exact opposite direction as the overall population trend. In every place in which minority students have become more isolated and vulnerable, acts of hostility and discrimination have increased. The product of university policy, combined with the abysmal policies in handling sexual assault, and further combined with the general unwillingness to defend the right to practice Islamic religion have all contributed to a thoroughly discriminatory and hostile environment against Muslim women. The University of Michigan is liable for the harm that is caused by its own policies. In implementing policies to deflate minority enrollment, the university has contributed to the rise in racial discrimination on the campus and the decline in opportunities for minority youth. For the Muslim students from Dearborn University, recruiters actively discourage enrollment to the flagship Ann Arbor campus, often by claiming that the Dearborn campus can, quote, offer more support for Muslim students. Notwithstanding the dubious claim of such support in Dearborn, even this common advice is an admission of discriminatory practices and the willful absence of support in Ann Arbor. For the past 15 years, the University of Michigan has implemented policies to reserve the flagship Ann Arbor campus overwhelmingly to white students while segregating minority students to the campus in Dearborn and Flint. These discriminatory policies must end.
We, the undersigned, in an expression of our commitment to freedom, equality, and justice, and in our sincere effort to realize the meaning of these ideals in practice, we, the undersigned, declare the following. We unequivocally defend the right of Muslim women to freedom of religion and religious expression. We defend the right to wear a hijab. We defend the right of Muslim women to define sexual boundaries that others must obey, and we deplore all incidents of sexual harassment and assault. We defend the right of Muslim women to be free from discrimination and anti-Islamic bigotry, to participate fully and equally in all aspects of society, to learn, to work, and to enjoy life on equal terms with all others. We demand that the University of Michigan make explicit in its written policies and genuine in daily practice that the right of religious expression includes the right of Muslim women to wear a hijab in class, at work, and in all aspects of campus life, and to be free from persecution and mistreatment related to the hijab. We demand that the University of Michigan make explicit in its written policies and genuine in daily practice that Muslim women have the right to be free from unwanted sexual behavior according to how the women define unwanted sexual behavior, and that this power of defining unwanted sexual behavior belongs equally to Muslim women as it does to all women. We demand that the University of Michigan address these needs specifically, explicitly, and publicly. We demand that the University of Michigan cease and desist all activities of its representatives from which function to discourage Muslim women from enrolling to the Ann Arbor campus, and to increase and desist all practices of reducing minority enrollment generally. We demand that the University of Michigan uphold the practice of equal rights, equal opportunities, and equal justice for Muslim women and for all members of the university community.
Okay, so we wanted to take a vote on the perspective of circulating this petition on campus.